Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest Same Old Arsenal podcast. It is a duet tonight. It is myself, Suburban Gooner Chris, and the ever effervescent, looks like he doesn't age, James Cookie. How are you doing, sir?
Well, after yesterday, mate, I feel like I aged a good few years, given what happens. But then that news at the end of the day just restored a complete new lease of life to me, and there is no one I would rather be talking this through with than your fine self.
Yeah, this is going to be a nice, fun podcast. Hello to everyone in the chat. Please feel free to pop your comments and questions that you've got. We'll try getting through as many as possible for the hour or so that James and I are going to be going on. But what we're going to do is a bit of a relive of the last 36 hours-ish, and kind of talk about the ups and downs. If we get time, James, I think maybe we'll do a little Leeds preview as well, but let's only do that if we get time. But with all of the news and with the mood that we're all in today, I've decided that I'm going to open something a little bit special. So I've got a nice bottle of the Burgundy Volnay, which is very silky. It's very smooth. A lovely bottle of red that I've got in the caravan. I'm going to pour myself a nice glass as we go, in celebration, really, because there's lots of fun to be had tonight. There's fun on an Arsenal perspective. There's fun on a tactical perspective. There's fun on the banter perspective. There's lots to be positive, but there's also something that we do need to lament and sort of spend a few moments on. So I feel like get the uncomfortable stuff out of the way first. And whilst I'm pouring this beautiful glass of Burgundy red, James, can you just talk to me about 36 hours ago, your mood? Let's start with the Trossard news. And then if you can just nicely segue into that news about Havertz, and then I'll give you some views on the both as well.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile talking about the Trossard's contract because in light of the Eze news, the Havertz news, it's kind of been pushed to the bottom of the pile, but it is still something that's happened. And I think that started off what was a bit of Arsenal turmoil, should we say, about 36 hours ago. And I'm not massively opposed to Trossard getting a new deal. I can understand why people are a little bit skeptical about it. But then when you threw the Havertz news in on top of that, I was thinking at the time anyway, oh, okay, Arsenal have look to try and get this done because of that. You know, we need to keep our options in the squad. We're led to believe that that wasn't the case. This deal has been agreed for some time, and it's now just a case of it's been signed, and it's coincidental it's happened at the time of the Havertz injury. But yeah, when I saw that Havertz news, what was it, yesterday lunchtime, breaking from David Ornstein, because you know we all got the notification. I'm sure we've all got David's notifications turned on, and we saw the Orney bomb, and it was that Havertz had suffered a significant injury. I was just thinking, God, no. Like, we've had an entire season of this. I can't believe we're potentially staring down the barrel of it happening again. It's game week 1, and already one of our most important players has gone down with an injury that could see him out for, well, we don't know the full extent yet, but we're anticipating at least be 2-3 months at the bare minimum. So, yeah, I was gutted, mate. I was absolutely gutted at that point. How was it for yourself?
Do you know what? I wrote a piece on yesterday morning, actually, a long time ago. Yesterday morning, and that piece was very much looking at we are where we're at. We now need to look at what we've got. And what we've got is Martinelli and a Trossard signed up to a bigger deal. Hopefully he'll have less of a chip on his shoulder, or certainly visibly looks like he's having less of a chip on his shoulder. Apparently he's constantly chirping away at Arteta as well. And I thought to myself, what have we got to do to get to where we need to be? And on that left wing position, I totted up that we've got, I think between them, they had something like 25 or 35 goal involvement, something like that. Normally I've got the numbers to hand. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I thought they've got to better that between the two of them, but in less games, because Madueke is going to play games. So between Madueke, Trossard and Martinelli, we need probably 20 goals and probably 20-25 assists minimum. That's an up. So essentially in the same amount of game time, same amount of minutes, but split them between them, That's what we need to go. And so I was trying to make that reasoning, that justification for myself. We've been talking for a good few while, actually. I think I actually went onto the Arsenal Opinion podcast, and one of my like hot takes was Eze can unlock someone like Martinelli. I mean, that's probably something that could be dismissed or debunked, because I wonder whether or not Arsenal have got designs on either Madueke playing on that left wing, but also maybe Eze playing there. If you look at his heat map, and I'd encourage anyone to go onto YouTube and have a look at Adrian Clark's breakdown that he did. I feel like it was yesterday, or it might have been this morning. He does a Leeds preview, but he also talks about Eze and what he brings, and he shows up the heat map, very left-sided, as we all know, but it looks like the heat map of a left winger. No, he's not, but we'll park that for now. So to go back to your original kind of point, and to not turn this into too much of a monologue, my thoughts were we have to get more out of what we've got, and I hope that we can do that. And then when we fast forward to the Orn bomb, as it is now written into folklore, that whenever there's a David Ornstein message, there's an Orn bomb to be had. I was just before I was about to pick the wife up, actually, and it was just before that she said, "Come and pick me up," and I was actually late picking her up because I was too busy scrolling through my social media feeds and looking at Sky Sports News for every piece of information and angle that we've got. Everything just flipped upside down. The pyramid was completely inverted because all of a sudden we're on cloud nine because of this signing. So your turn. I'm gonna flick this one back over the fence to you, just to give me some vibes on where you were when the Orn bond dropped, because you must know, and then your initial reaction.
So last night I'd gone round to my parents for the evening, and when I was talking to my dad, who's not really, like you and me, we're on social media, we're relentlessly refreshing Twitter and trying to find out that latest scoop of transfer news. People of my dad's generation aren't really doing that. They get their insights from BBC News, or bless him, he's probably still using CFAX. But he was talking to me about Eze, and he was like, "Oh, do you reckon we're still going to get him?" And we knew yesterday, like Fabrizio had done the, it's edging ever close to Spurs. I was like, nah, it's done. He's definitely going to Spurs. I was resigned to it happening at that point. I thought it was as good as a done deal. Then I got back in the car to drive home, turned on TalkSport, and whoever it was talking about the Eze deals. Oh yeah, we've got some breaking news with regards to Eberechi Eze. We're going to come back with Ben Jacobs in about 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, that's just confirmation that the
I was going to say, I bet you were like, oh,
yeah, like he's going to Spurs. Then I got home, turned on Twitter, scrolled through. I was like, oh my God. Like, honestly, I just kind of sat there for about 5 minutes, just reading, just clarifying. Okay, is this real? Is this real? Is this real? And then I saw the David Ornstein one. I was like, just head on my hands. Just enough to display. I must have just sat on my sofa for about 45 minutes, just in pure silence yesterday, just trying to comprehend that this was actually happening. And yeah, it's got to be, in my Arsenal supporting lifetime, I mean, in terms of social media, it was just mental. It was crazy. It was definitely up there. I mean, I'm not comparing it to the Mesut Ozil transfer, but in terms of just a all-round carnage across social media from so many different fan bases, it was just glorious, mate. It was absolutely glorious, and it's probably one of the most exciting evenings I've had from that point of view. And yeah, I'm so glad that we're actually doing it, that Arsenal just thought, let's just throw our principles out the window for a second, push the effort button, and let's just get this deal done. Because how often do we do this? We never do it. We all felt like we were so resigned to him going to Spurs. But for us to actually do this, like, he's the player. I think you and me have both said it. He's the player that we have wanted on a personal level all summer. I get the people pouring their hearts out for Rodrigo and why they would want him. There's a lot of luxury attached with that signing. But for me, Eze was always the guy. He would have been my dream signing this window. So yeah, I'm over the moon, mate. Absolutely over the moon. Talk me through how it unfolded for you.
Yeah, well, I was at work, and so I didn't get the same sort of vibes thing, but it was just before I had to go and then pick the wife up. And Yeah, the feeling of it, I think the the thing about transfers like this is that they don't really happen anymore. And I'm not the first person to say this, because if you're an Arsenal fan like me, when you get news like this, you basically absorb every single type of content you can get your grubby little hands on. So I've been reading everything. I've listened to about 3 or 4 podcasts, and so I've listened to so much that I don't actually know where I've heard certain things from. But I found myself thinking about the Sol Campbell transfer. I found myself thinking about Mesut Ozil, but mainly that Sol Campbell transfer. It's not the same as Sol because he crossed the divide. But in terms of the explosion of feeling that meant, and in terms of the vibes that it gives you, we don't get things like that anymore. Like, that doesn't happen. Everything's thought out. Everything's detailed. Every journo is 1 or 2 steps ahead of the actual process as it plays out. This one was just completely blindsided. And I think Arsenal have played an absolute blinder. If we think about the chronology of this, there's talk about Arsenal are interested, then it goes quiet. And I've heard things I've seen a couple of bits on my WhatsApps and stuff where people were actively saying, no, this is dead now. Eze is dead now. And this was 3, 4, 5 days ago, whatever it is. I think that the people so Arsenal and every club, they leak information. They do briefings. We've seen it with Liverpool, and we want to respect the players like Gahey and Isak, which is a whole load of bollocks. They're feeding to the press what they want to be fed. And I think Arsenal have fed to the press what they wanted to feed. But not only that, they've fed that to certain people inside of the club to keep this as under wraps as possible, because people are always digging for little scoops and sound bites. And a lot of people were just, no, this deal is done, this deal is dead. And I suspect it's because there was a small core of people that were involved in this. And I listened to a YouTube of Simon Jordan and what's his chops, the Scottish guy who used to wear the yellow tie on transfer deadline day.
Jim.
Jim White.
Yeah,
I listened to them for about 5 minutes earlier. I never listened to TalkSport. I won't listen to TalkSport, but I watched that because it was because Simon Jordan has got an interesting view. He's got a Palace view, and he's a chairman. And he said there is absolutely zero chance that Arsenal woke up in the morning and said, let's pull the trigger. Let's go for this. They would have been making decisions on this. There probably was a meeting. There probably was like a discussion about, what do we do? Are we going to do this? And then yes, maybe the Havertz thing had something to do with it. But the more I think about it, the more I'm wondering if I'm not sure how much the Havertz thing actually had to do with it. Maybe 10%, maybe 20%. What's your view on that bit? The impact of the Havertz injury?
I think it definitely played a role, but I don't think it's just that alone that has made Arsenal go, right now is the time where we had to act. I think it's a culmination of that happening, but also the fact that Spurs seem to be accelerating talks with Palace. And I'm sure there was, although we're led to believe now that Palace was stalling and they were happy to sell to Arsenal, and Eze's preference was Arsenal, and there's that really good relationship between Steve Parish and Tim Lewis. They were probably saying to Arsenal, look, we've got this deal lined up with Spurs. It's a fee that we're happy to accept. Are you going to do this or not? And Arsenal were probably kind of put into a corner where they had to say either yes or no, because either he goes to Spurs and we don't get him, and then we've lost out on a target that we've kind of been courting for the past 2 months. So I do think that Havertz's injury definitely played a part, because they probably just thought, well, now he's gone, this is a guy that we wanted. Let's do it. We need to replace the goals and assists that we're potentially going to miss by not having Havertz in the team. So I do think it played a role. I agree with you. It's probably not 100% of a factor, but maybe around 25, 30%. So yeah, it's just something we had to do. Those factors of him potentially going to Spurs, the Havertz injury, they had a knock-on effect. But I think it was put out today that we maybe had an agreement with Palace about 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So yeah, it's been rumbling on in the background, and I'm in agreement with you. The club have obviously been putting out briefings to journalists that don't quite match the reality of what's been happening. You have to say, fair play to Palace for actually making this happen for us and halting Tottenham a little bit and making it more favourable in that sense. So yeah, it's just played out in the most perfect way, I think. But before we talk about how exciting the Eze transfer is, and where he's going to play for us and what he can do for us, I think it's important we do highlight that Havertz is out and
Yeah.
Eze's not a striker. So as great as it is that he's coming in, we are going to be missing a player that is quite unique and focal in our attack. So putting it back to you, Chris, I mean, are you, amongst all the excitement, a little bit worried that our only out and out striking option for at least the next, let's assume best case is 2 months, is just going to be Victor Gyökeres, a guy that's coming from Portugal that's, not going to have that adaptation period anymore. He's going to be thrust right into the middle of it, and he has to perform.
Yeah, I'm just going to come back to the blind of the club page very, very quickly, because we talked about it just before we went air. So I just want to sort of air this myself. I think it's very, very clever the way that the club also were briefing literally yesterday, a few hours before the news broke, that Arsenal were looking at loan deals or low value deals. Clearly, somebody has said something to journalists for them to put that out there. Clearly, that was designed to blindside the likes of Tottenham or whatever it was, until they got to the point where they were like, yep, deal agreed, done. So very, very clever, very shrewd, the kind of operating that we don't usually tend to do, but it's the sort of thing that I love to see as well. Thank you very much. Just as an aside, to just under 500 of you that have joined us, please feel free to give a like, put a notification on, press the bell, and so you can put a notification if you're on Twitter or YouTube. We love having you around, and hopefully we'll get you around a little bit more if you enjoy this podcast. But to go back to your question, the striker situation, I think this is an interesting thing, because if we think back to pre-Gyökeres, pre-Havertz, if we even go back to when we had Aubameyang and Lacazette was a connector in theory. I mean, we all know I have my issues with Lacazette. I don't think he was mobile enough. He just stopped scoring after a while. As he just peaked and came to the end of his time at Arsenal. But Arteta likes a forward that can bring other players into play, and I think Arteta puts a lot of value in wide forwards. So if Arsenal if they're stocked with wide forwards that can get goals, I don't think Arteta minds a connecting or a hold-up centre forward. And so that's when you think to yourself, I can understand why they might look at this and go, Eze can play wide left, or we can put him in left 8. He's not going to come in at centre forward, but he will get us goals. Madueke is going to get us goals. Saka's going to get us goals. Trossard and Martinelli will also get us goals as well. So my gut feel is that Arteta's going to say, Gyökeres, you're the main man for a while. This gives you a bedding in period. But Merino, you're going to get chances as well. Because a lot of us were saying, where's Merino fit in all of this? A lot of us were saying, Marino's not going to get any game time. He's not going to play left 8 ahead of Rice or ahead of, Havertz potentially. Eze is now an option. So I genuinely think that this is an opportunity for Merino to be that target man, that hold-up play, and not expecting to get in the goals all the time, but he's good in the air. I think Arsenal will see this as, we now need more goals. We need more end product from our wide forwards. What's your perspective on that in terms of Arsenal spreading the goals out a bit more, and therefore thinking, do you know what? It's fine to go with Merino up top, maybe even a Nwaneri, because Arteta said that before. He can play as a centre forward. We're yet to see it, but Arteta's put it out there.
I've not got a problem with spreading the goals around. If anything, I mean, I said it when I was podding with Amanda the other day. Like, I'm more than happy if Gyökeres gets 15 goals in the league, because that's 15 goals we didn't have last season. And if they come all against teams in the bottom half of the table, again, that's not really a big deal for me, because those are the teams that we struggled against last season. So long as he gets those goals in any way, shape, or form, not a problem. And so long as the likes of Saka, Madueke, Eze, Martinelli, Trossard, let's assume they all get somewhere in the range of 5 to 15/20 each, because not all of them are going to be playing as many minutes as each other. So that's not a problem. Where I do have a slight cause for concern, and where I'm sure some people are going to be losing their absolute rag, is the potential of having Mikel Merino starting as the striker in some games. because that I feel like even though he was great there, like well, maybe great's an exaggeration, but he did a very admirable job there for like 2-3 months at the back end of last season, and I've got all the respect in the world for him. But I feel like some fans could view that as regression or stagnating if we've still kind of got him being that backup option. And look, it's really, really bad luck, but he has proven that he can play there. I think there are some games where it won't be a problem at all. There are going to be some Champions League group stage games. There's going to be League Cup games where you can play Marino up top, and I think it'll be fine. I don't really want Trossard up top, to be quite honest. So your options are wearing quite thin. Be interested to see Wanyeri there. Something that we've not tried or tested yet at all. And then the only concern I've got with Gyökeres is that he's such a different player to Havertz. And you kind of know what you're going to get with Havertz whenever he plays. He's going to hold the ball up really well. He's going to bring others into the game. From what I saw of Gyökeres, he did a bit of that against Man United. Obviously, it's really hard to judge him. It was a game where everyone played pretty horrendously. But what I see him as is that guy that's going to run beyond the back line as opposed to being the guy that's going to hold the ball up and bring others into the game. So that would be my slight cause for concern, is that the balance and the cohesion, I don't think it's going to be a click of the fingers. I think that could take a while to work, and I think we saw the start of that potentially happening on Sunday against United. But I'm optimistic. Be silly not to be when you look at the options we've got and the way we can change things so quickly. But there's no reason for it not to be at all balanced. I just I worry about the lack of depth at centre forwards, given that we literally do just have Gyökeres now. But I'm not losing my mind over it. I've listened to a few podcasts today where they've been saying, look, we're still one short, and I just can't subscribe to that opinion at all, because if we bring one more player in, let's say in a fantasy scenario, we brought in Ollie Watkins, at some point you're going to have Watkins, Gyökeres, Havertz and Gabriel Jesus. You've got 4 starting Premier League centre forwards there. It's just,
and it's big money as well. All of those will be big money.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at what, 750 grand a week alone on Gyökeres, Havertz and Jesus. So no, for me, no more signings. We're done with incomings. We don't need any more. We've made 7. It's more than acceptable. It's the best ever window I've ever experienced as an Arsenal fan.
Well, then just a quick one, just to knock that one down, because you kind of answered that. Smaka says in the chat, surely we won't have any more signings. I think I agree with you. I don't think that's the case. And then here's one which I want you to chew on a little bit, James, and let's have a little bit of a discussion. John Rowe says Martinelli cover as centre forward. Isn't it a weird thing? There's certain players and certain positions where everyone seems to think that could work, and the only person that doesn't is Mikel Arteta. And Alexander Zinchenko playing as a number 6 or in central midfield, which he does for Ukraine, is a classic example. I think we saw it right towards the end of the season, but it was almost probably like a dead minutes type thing. But Zinchenko playing as in midfield, it just hasn't been a thing, whereas he's captain for his international team for it. And Martinelli, so many of us have been saying that. Could he play as a centre forward? I remember when he first broke onto the scene, I think he scored a really good headed goal in one of his first games in the Europa League.
He scored a good few headed goals like that, like seriously good headed goals
in the centre of the pitch, and you're thinking to yourself, he could be a centre forward. What about him as cover centre forward?
Yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to the idea. I think there's going to be games where you want to take Gyökeres off, and if you want to play a bit more transitionally, then I think Martinelli is a closer fit to Gyökeres in terms of running in behind, running the channels, and he's going to get, you'd like to think he'd get a bit more time on the ball and get into positions that maybe feel a bit more natural to him if he's playing in the central areas of the pitch. I mean, we know his game inside out now, Martin. He's going to get the ball, hug the touchline, head down, and he'll do something. The end product will be something that a lot of us don't really like. But I think he's a player that we have to experiment with a little bit this season. He's still young. He's still 24. And I think that's a good opportunity for him to get more minutes. Whether he's starting in the League Cup at centre forward, starting the Champions League game at centre forward, he's definitely an option there. Because you look at our left wing options now, you've now got Trossard, Madueke, and Eze on top of Martinelli. So suddenly we've gone from having like no left wing options to 4.
Wanyeri can play there. Reece Nelson is still at the club. I mean, it's quite crazy,
Scott's.
really.
Yeah, we really have to move players on now. I think that's. I think in an ideal world, Arsenal would have been saying to Palace, "Look, we really want to do this as a deal, but we need to get Fabio Vieira, Reece Nelson, Cole Hines, Sambi Lokonga. We need to get these players off the books before we can do that." And like I was alluding to earlier, Palace are probably saying, "Yeah, we're happy to wait, but there's only so long we can wait for because we need to get this money in, and we also need to get a replacement ourselves," which is absolutely fair enough. So I think Arsenal have done this deal with the hope that we can raise maybe. I think we'll struggle to raise more than 50 million in this last kind of week and a bit of the window. And I think we could see a substantial sale like Kivior happen.
Well, it's funny you say that, and let's talk about that because Melissa in the chat, and let's do a little bit of audience participation now. So those of you in the chat, if you want to post any questions and stuff, remember you do that. We can star those and then get back to those towards the end, or we'll answer them in real time as we're going. But Melissa talked about Kivior to Palace, and James, I want to get your, because I was having a chat with a couple of lads on my football WhatsApp groups earlier about if that happens, a price. I want you to think about a price that you'd find acceptable. But Des, who is saying Arteta is correct, Martinelli is not a centre forward. Des, this is audience participation time. Easy for me to say. I've had a beer and that Volnay is looking very, very nice. I'll be sampling that in a minute, just letting it breathe. Why? Can you just pop in the chat because we'll dissect that as well. Why you think Martinelli is not a centre forward? Because I think James and I both feel like he has the raw materials to do that. I think a lot of people are down on Martinelli as well because he's been at the club a while. He's not had an amazing pre-season. The game against Palace wasn't amazing, but you could say that for about 7 or 8 players, and certainly all of the forward line players wasn't amazing. But because of where Martinelli's at in terms of his development, I think there's a big downer on what I think is a very, very good player for Martinelli. When he went missing in January, we missed him. So we had those 3 players out. We had Havertz, we had Saka, and we had Martinelli out. We obviously missed Saka and Kai probably more than Martinelli, but Martinelli was still a big miss, and I still think he's got a lot to give. So Des, pop it in the chat. But let's go back to Melissa's comment. How much are you saying, James, if you could go to Palace now, if you're Andrea Berta and you've just wrestled yourself a lovely Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace, and Palace chairman Steve Parris says, "I like the look of your Kivior." What are you saying, and how much are you asking for?
I like the look of your Kivior. I love to imagine Steve Parris is on the phone just calling up, doesn't even say hello. He's like, "I like the look of your Kivior." I would probably be looking around the 40-ish million mark. I don't think we'll get that. For what it's worth, I think, Phil Backer, I completely agree. 40 million would be what I would want, especially when you look at the likes of Kwanzaa going for that much, and especially when you factor in that this would have a knock-on effect because it would mean Gueye goes to Liverpool. So we'd have to be compensated in that sense. Not that Palace would see it that way, but I think realistically we're looking at 30 to 35 mil, and I think the club would look to negotiate at that price as well for a player that, you know, their value is not going to be higher. If there's no other suitors, they might think, you know, it's a season of not getting in the squad that much, playing the odd minutes here and there, unless Gabriel has an injury, and even then we've got Calafiori, we've got Mosquera. So I think the club may be inclined to do a deal, and I think it might be in Kivior's, but as much as I want Kivior to stay, and I love the idea of having 8 really good defenders, it might be one too many just to share the minutes around. So I think it might be a good idea for him to potentially move on if there's an offer there that suits all parties. And look, if we sell him to Palace for, let's say, 35 million, when you factor in the Nketiah deal last summer, we've basically got Eze for free. So that's one way of looking at it.
I quite like that back of a fag packet style accounting that you're dropping there for us, James. So when I had a chat with a couple of lads from the group that I go to the games with on a Saturday and Sunday, or Mondays or Fridays these days, or midweeks these days, one of the things that I said is 30 million quid. And I got a bit of pushback because it was surely not like Liverpool can sell some sort of kid for 15 million that's never played in the Premier League before. Yes. But the problem is let's be honest, And I don't feel like I want to dwell on this too much because, it's a nice day. This is a fun pod. This is a happy pod. But Arsenal have been terrible sellers. Like, the only money we ever seem to get is through Hale Enders or the English lads. I don't think we're getting 35 million for Kivior. I think we should. I think any other team probably would. But I think if we get 30 million for him, then possibly we have to just take that. If you're talking about the pushback that I got was English tax, as in Premier League club tax, you've got to add 5 million on whatever you think the value is of a player anyway. I don't think as much as we've just dropped 67 million quid, including add-ons on Palace's lap, I don't think they're coming back to us and saying, we'll give you 2/3 of that for your centre half, albeit how good a finish to the season he had. I just don't think they're doing it. What's your kind of initial thoughts on my reasoning?
I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, that more clubs aren't in for Kivior, because I think a lot of the players that we want to move on, I can understand why a lot of clubs aren't in for them, because I can't see a lot of Premier League sides going in for, say, a Fabio Vieira, because he's played in the league. Obviously, he's not quite cut out for it. But with Kivior, he's played a lot of football in the Premier League. He's done really well against a top side in Real Madrid, kept Kylian Mbappe quiet across 2 legs. You'd think most Premier League sides, or at least sides on the continent, would be exploring him a bit more. And the only side that seems to have shown any genuine interest is Porto. So that really surprises me for a guy that it's quite obvious he's not going to play a lot. He wasn't even in the squad for the United game. To go from kind of hero at the end of last season playing every game, so I don't want to say zero, but to not even be in the team, you've got to be kind of scratching your head as to where you stand. So I'd be looking for a move if I was him. And if I was a club looking for a player in his position, I'd be making inquiries. Maybe those are happening in the background, but I'm surprised there's not more interest. But I think the reality is we are bad sellers. I can't beat around the bush at all. But I think a lot of the players we want to move on aren't players that clubs are interested in. I can't really blame them. I think I wouldn't be, chomping at the bit to sign an Albert Sambi Lokonga, for example. What's the appeal there? He's
very
injured.
well at Fulham. Sorry, at Luton.
He did, but similarly to someone like Reece Nelson, injured all the time. A lot of these players, they're always injured. Reece Nelson, injured all the time. Lokonga, injured all the time. Fabio Vieira has his injury problems. So I can understand why we are struggling to shift these players on, whereas Liverpool, for example, have players that are a little bit more attractive. I still think some of the fees they've got are insane for a few of the players, like Ben Doak going for 25 million. Like, how and why has that happened? I know he had a decent season at Middlesbrough, but does that justify a price tag at that height?
So can I just jump in on that? This is the thing that really winds us collectively as Arsenal fans up. So I have just said that we'll get 30 million for Kivior, £5 million more than somebody who's a complete unknown. Kivior is a Polish international. He had a really good end to last season. He played in a Champions League semi-final. He's a good footballer. By all rights, if you're comparing it to some of what that club and Man City and Chelsea, although Chelsea's is always a little bit murky, let's be honest, what they can churn out, we should be saying, 40 million quid, no problem, job done, happy days. But it's utterly bizarre. But sorry, I stopped you in your thread, so carry on.
No worries at all. I just think, although we had the bad sellers reputation, the players that we've got aren't overly attractive, and I do think it's a little bit more blown out of proportion than is actual facts. Like, if you go back to last summer, I think we got decent fees for the players we moved on. The one that I'm a little bit dubious about is Aaron Ramsdale. We broke even on him, or maybe made a slight loss, which is a real shame when you consider he was like in the Ballon d'Or rankings the season before, and we just tanked his value over the course of a season. But I've got no issues with the fees we got for Nketiah, who's barely scored a goal for Palace, Smith Rowe, who's kind of been hot and cold for Fulham. Those are players that I really wanted to see do well at Arsenal, but we're looking at them now, and we're looking at the fees we got, and no real issue there. The same when you look at the likes of Balogun. I don't think we've got any players, apart from the ones obviously that we want to keep within the squad, that are going to go for mega money. Kivior's the only exception. Even then, we're talking about a 30 to 40 million pound fee. But I'm not again, I'm not losing my mind. If you look at the players we sold last window, in summer, that is, they all went in the last days of the window. Like that Palace one with Nketiah rumbled on the entire summer. Entire summer. Didn't happen until deadline day. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement happen on deadline day in terms of outgoings. And I think it's going to be a lot of deals that people aren't going to like. I think you're going to see a lot of loans with options to buy for the likes of Reece Nelson, who I anticipate will go to Fulham on a deal like that. I anticipate someone like Fabio Vieira will go on a deal like that. There might be a few loans with obligations, but in terms of actual money that's going to come in this window, I think you've got to sell like a Kivior, because I don't see where else money is going to come in from, because they're all going to be loans with obligations, I feel.
Yeah. There are 750 of you beautiful humans in the chat. I said right at the top of the podcast, I've busted out a celebratory 2007 Volnay, which is a Burgundy wine. James is not a beverage drinker of the percentage variety, but pop in the chat. Let's have a bit of fun. This is a fun day. Pop in the chat. What beverage, your celebratory beverage, are you having, and why are you having it? Talk to me about that. Let's go back to some of the fun stuff, though, James. Let's talk about Eze. I'm going to hit you with some numbers. You know me. I love coming on this pod and being the numbers dude. I'm not really a stats person. I just love some of the numbers. So, I'm not the elite levels of someone like Scott from the Canon Stats pod or anything like that. But Eze is somebody who takes shots, which is exciting, averages about 3.5 shots per game. He takes on players, 2 per game. He played 43 times last season, 14 goals, 11 assists, only 1 yellow card, 3,300 minutes. He played 39 times out of that 43 as an attacking midfielder for Palace, and he only played 3 times as a left winger. You can pick any of the various stats I've given you to have a little bit of a free run. It's break time, and you can have a run around in the playground and play around with whatever you want right now with some of that. But give me some thoughts either on where we're going to play Eze, or what you think he gives us that nobody else in the Arsenal team gives us.
Oh, where do I start with that one? So I think the most natural position for him to get into this side, talking from an immediate point of view, is on that left wing. But that's not me saying he's going to play as an out-and-out left winger. I think he will play kind of the opposite to what Bukayo Saka does on the other flank, or kind of a carbon copy of what Bukayo Saka does, for use of a better term. I think he's going to drift into the middle a lot more. So even though he's starting on the left, he's still going to drift and occupy those areas that he occupies quite naturally for Crystal Palace. And when you've got someone like Calafiori who's going to bomb on ahead of him on that left-hand side, I can see that working really, really well. So I think I'm not too hung up on where he's going to play. I think whether he's playing left day, whether he's playing as an out-and-out centre attacking midfielder in a game in place of Ødegaard, for example, and we have maybe a Zubimendi and Rice pivot in behind, he's one of those players that I feel can play anywhere in those attacking areas, and he's going to do what Eze does. I love that interview he did not too long ago over the summer, where he was just saying, I want to get people off their seats. I want to take risks. I want to take chances. I want to run with the ball. We've got no one that does that, apart from Bukayo Saka.
Ethan
Waneri does that. Yeah, Waneri does that. And actually, Chris, this is an interesting one, because when me and Amanda did the podcast at the weekend, and I was trying to justify us not getting Eze, and I was like, oh, well, he's going to block.
We've all done that. Come on, we've all done that. You're not alone.
I was saying to her, he's going to block the pathway for Waneri, for Dalman. Do you, again, amongst the excitement, not to put a downer on things, but do you have any slight concerns that now we've got him and that area of the pitch is so heavily stacked? Let's look at Eze in the sense that he might play in Ødegaard's position from time to time. That's also Waneri's position. That's also potentially Max Dalman's position. Is there a part of you that's a bit concerned that, well, great, we've got Waneri signed up, but he's going to barely play this season now?
No, and I'll tell you for why. I think we've got 60 to 70 games, hopefully, that we'll play this season. So there's lots of minutes in it. I think he's an 18-year-old. And I think last season he seems to have his head screwed on. His people around him, his agent, Mikel Arteta, Arsenal, they will have talked about that and said, you're a fantastic footballer. You've got a massive future at Arsenal. You're going to push your way through eventually. But let's be honest, he had games after that initial sort of flurry of brilliant performances in February time when we were relying on him and he really stepped up. He had a couple of games where he just wasn't 100% on it, which is fine because you're 18 years old. I think Arsenal are doing the right thing with something like Eze because they're not putting too much pressure on him. He can now play the role of understudy to Ødegaard. If we're winning a football match, by a couple of goals, I mean, I'm hoping, touch wood, that we can really set a marker down against someone like Leeds at the weekend. We all hope that. Wouldn't it be amazing if we're a couple of goals up, 3 goals up, something like that? Again, I'm touching wood. I'm not making any assumptions. We could all very well be feeling very much down to earth come 4:30 on no, not 4:30 because we play at 5:30, but we play at 5:30. But at 7:30, we could all be feeling very much down to earth with a bump if we've lost or drawn against Leeds. Certainly could happen. But when there's those games where we are winning, but we don't feel like we can take Ødegaard off, we have a player who can do that. We have a player that can play understudy. He will play the League Cup games. He will play some Champions League games. He will possibly play FA Cup games. He will get minutes in the league as well. I think Arsenal will use him. They will be more comfortable about using Waneri as a understudy, as in you're going to start today because Martin's picked up a little knock. We'll have Martin on the bench type thing as a protection mechanism than they were before. Let's also say this as well. If let's just put a position, let's put something into place where Eze is playing left 8 and Madueke is playing left wing. Maybe Saka's feeling something. He can play right wing. Waneri can play right wing. He's shown that. He's shown he can be very impactful from the right hand side. So I'm not too worried about the minutes that he's got, and I think him and his people around him will be comfortable about how he's going to be used with Arteta. And last year was a bit of an outlier. So I'm not too worried about that. What I think it is interesting, this whole scenario, is how unpredictable I think this signing makes us as well. Like, you and I are obsessive about this football club. Everyone in the chat is obsessive about this football club. Eze probably won't. Well, he's not going to play this weekend because obviously he's only just going to do his medical tomorrow, and then maybe we'll see him in the ground. But against Liverpool or in 3 weeks' time, do you have any idea how we might line up? Because I don't. We could play Madueke on the left. We could play Martinelli on the left. We could play Eze on the left. We could play Eze left 8. We could play Rice left 8. We could play Rice next to Zubamendi in a pivot. We could play Saka on the right. We could play Ødegaard. Obviously, Ødegaard normally plays. There are so many different ways in which we can play. We can decide that Gyökeres maybe just needs a bit of a time to one side or something. So maybe we play Waneri up top as a false 9 even. That could be something that we do. It's probably unlikely, but it's a possibility. Martinelli could be an option up top as well. Although I'm going to go back to Des because, to be fair to him, what he's done is he has come back to me and given his reasonings on Martinelli not playing up top. So let's just quickly do a Shakespearean aside. I can't seem to press the show. Can you show Des's comment for me? It's not working for me.
What one?
Yeah,
he's got to. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry, there we go.
So 2 lightweight is a speedster, was brilliant on the left 2 seasons ago, cutting in on the right and scoring, but has lost that ability seemingly. I just don't see it with the aura. Des, the only thing I'll come back to you on, because we're all friends here on the Same Old Arsenal podcast, everyone in the chat, and also those of us who come on and talk on this show. Think about the Bilbao goal, that out to in run that we got for Saka's goal. It was Martinelli starting on the left, making a diagonal run inwards. He was in a central position there. If you get Martinelli into those kind of running positions, that's what I want Martinelli to be doing, those kind of diag runs, whether it's left, whether it's right. Martinelli doesn't work if he's hugging the touchline. head down, running down and flipping the ball in. But I'm kind of I'm monologuing again. So James, I want to give you a chance to give some thoughts on what Des has said there.
Yeah, I don't think he's lightweight. I think Martinelli holds his own quite well against most fullbacks. The issue is that he just doesn't beat them a lot of the time, and whether that's down to the way he's being asked to play, but I think we can all agree that his way of playing is just far too predictable. And you've got to remember, out of all the players in this squad, he's probably in an area of the pitch where there has been the most change. Like when we saw the best version of Martinelli was when we had Zinchenko and Granit Xhaka helping him out on that left-hand side, and it gave him a lot more space, a lot more freedom, and there just seems to be such good chemistry between those three. Whereas now he's, playing with either Miles Lewis-Skelly or Ricardo Calafiori or Declan Rice. But I like to think potentially there could be a scenario where, let's say, we've got Eze in that left 8 or attacking midfield role, and then it's maybe Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back. That could kind of be a bit reminiscent of what we were getting with Xhaka and Zinchenko. I mean, they're very different players, but in terms of balance, it might work out a little bit better. But I think there are now so many options within the team to get the best out of Martinelli. I would want to see more from him. However, I think you are going to still see a hell of a lot of him this season, despite the options we've got on that left-hand side, because like we saw against Man United, as soon as he went off the pitch, we were a lot more exposed on that side. So he's still an exceptional player to have. And I mean, I just wish he would add goals and assists to his game a bit more, because the work rate and enthusiasm for the game is so clearly there. He just needs to find that flair that he had a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. We need something to unlock him, don't we? Maybe that is an Eze playing infield a little bit more. Maybe it is him playing centrally. We don't know. But as a few people have said in the chat, we're unpredictable, and we've said as well, very unpredictable. I want to play a fun game. James, would you like to play a fun game with me?
I would love to do that, Chris. That sounds great.
People in the chat, you can also play this fun game. And given that we're talking about the unpredictability of Arsenal, it's a fun but difficult game. James Cook, you go first. Name me Arsenal's best starting 11. Go.
Oh, God, Chris, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you do
in
that?
The chat. There is nearly 900 of you in the chat. Please press the like, subscribe by pressing the bell notification, and you'll get access to the same old Arsenal podcast in your ears or on your eyeballs whenever we are going live. We will be going live on Sunday morning, I think, hopefully talking about a win against Leeds. If you didn't know by now, what I'm doing is what's called filler. I'm helping James by filling so that he can think frantically what Arsenal's best team is. But people in the chat.
No, Chris, I've got it.
You got it? All right,
I'm
fine.
ready.
Then I'm gonna shut the hell up. But people in the chat, pop your best 11. Arsenal's best 11 this season. James Cook, tell them where you're going.
Okay, so I'm going to go front to back, and it starts with Mikel Merino up top. No. Get that one out of the way.
Get out of here.
So I'll go David Raya in goal, Timber at right back, Saliba, Gabriel, and I'm going to go Calafiori, which I know might divide opinion. I know Lewis-Skelly was so good last season, but I think with that those three other defenders alongside him, when we morph into more of a back three, you can have Calafiori go and do what he does best and have enough defensive security. So that's why I've gone for him. I just think he's such again, like the player we're about to sign, Eze, he's a maverick. So he's in there for me. And then it's Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, and then I'm going to go with Eze. Although I am kind of drooling
Can you give me that one to 11 again? Because I've just written mine down and I just want to see which ones I've done similar to you. I think we're different on the fullbacks. Go on, carry on. Say it again.
No, it's sorry, just before I go into that, I was just in my mind thinking of a prospect of having Eze, Wanyeri and Saka playing behind like a fully fit Gabriel Jesus, and that's kind of a very exciting prospect that I'm going to park for another day. But in terms of the 11 I just went through, David Raya, Yuri and Timber, William Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Martin Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Kai Havertz, and Eberechi Eze.
So I've gone David Raya, Ben White,
Blimey.
Bill Saliba. Bear with me. Big Gab, Mars Lewis Skelly, Zubimendi, Erdegaard Rice, Saka, obviously, Havertz, and Eze. People in the chat, please feel free to give James and I a good lambasting for not choosing Victor Gyökeres. Let's start with that one and work backwards. Why did you not pick Victor Gyökeres as our best option?
Simply because right now it's too early. With Kai Havertz, he's been integral to this team for 2 seasons now. He's got really good numbers across both seasons. He brings others into the game. He's an ever-present on the pitch. He started his Arsenal career, I think, a little bit quiet and lurking in the shadows, but he's anything but that now. I just think he's so important for the way we play through the team. He is the tip of the diamond. He is, right at the top of the spine. So I'm hopeful that Gyökeres will change my opinion. If he bags 2 or 3 against Leeds, then that quite quickly changes. But for now, because I know what I'm getting with Havertz, and I'm still not sure what I am getting with Gyökeres, I think it's a quite simple one.
Okay. 10 points docked from Avon for not sticking to the brief and choosing Gyökeres / Kai. Come on, Avon, you got to pick one. Get those splinters out of your ass, mate. You got to pick one, my friend. Come on. And then I don't know, because I was just writing down. I was writing down, James, my reserve 11, my squad rotation 11, based on the players that I didn't pick. And mine would be Kepa, Timber, Mosquera, Kivior, still at the club, Calafiori, Norgard, Marino, Waneri, Madueke, Gyökeres, and Martinelli. And we don't even have space for Trossard on this second 11. This is mental depth. Absolutely mental, the depth. One of the questions I want to ask you, but I want to park this for now and remind me if I forget before we finish, is the conversation about Arsenal having to now go out and win the league. Like, there's no option with that depth. I mean, that depth makes you think about it. But let me. My mum was a A-level and GCSE maths teacher. She always said, "Show your workings." I'm with you on the Havertz stuff. I think most of it we were the same. It's the fullbacks that we were different on. What I love about Ben White is his overlapping runs. I think it creates space for Saka, and I think Saka operates that little bit more effectively when White is in the team as opposed to Timber, because Timber is a more natural defender. So that's why I've shown my workings on White. And Mars Lewis Skelly was an absolute revelation last season, and I think he's going to get better. I think he's strong, he's physical, he's powerful, his running power. I think his defending will get better. And I think that he is probably our best left back. But I will concede that Calafiori against Bilbao looked good. Calafiori, he got the goal against Man United. He can be exposed sometimes. And I think the Martinelli question is an interesting one as well. As you said, Martinelli covers back, and so therefore gives Calafiori that license to do something that nobody else in our team does. But for me, that's our fullback. But talk to me about that bench options. I'm literally putting my hand on my face, looking at it, going, flipping, yeah, that is a pretty strong squad Arteta's got now. No excuse to win the title, question mark?
I hate that phrase. There's no excuse to not compete, because, I mean, look, we've spent a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, we've got the highest net spend in the league. We've got, look at the options we've got. Like, there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't be pushing, whether it's Liverpool or City or somebody else, to the absolute limit. I don't think you can assume that we're going to win something. It's football. Absolutely anything could happen. We could get a couple of injuries again, fingers crossed, God forbid, and hopefully we've got the players in reserve to make sure that's not a problem, and maybe we can rotate a hell of a lot more now because we've got players that are going to be wanting to get minutes. So we have to compete. We have to win something this season. I think it's there's 4 competitions that we can win. We've got to get some silverware of some shape or form this campaign. So yeah, I expect a big season from Arsenal now. We've got the players at our disposal to do it. I hate to be negative, but I do wonder if the squad is too big. Almost like, don't you remember? I love the options, but I can't help but feel that there's going to be a situation come the end of the season where someone who's really good just hasn't played. Like, let's say we brought Madueke in, but he barely plays now because Saka's fit all the time. And don't get me wrong, I think he will play because he'll play on the right hand side. We're going to take Saka off at times, but again, it goes back to my point about Wanyeri. Like, I don't think he'll play as much as I think I wanted or expected him to at the start of the campaign, unless we're seriously like changing the entire 11 for League Cup games or Champions League games. But what we've seen from Arteta in the past is he doesn't make like massive wholesale changes when he finds an 11 that he likes. So he has to get better at rotating. I think as good as the signings are, there are some coaching issues, I suppose, that we have to resolve. Again, looking at that left-hand side, we need to do better there, whether it's Eze, Martinelli, Madueke, Trossard starting there. We need to get more from that side of the pitch. So, yeah, I've gone off on a massive tangent here, but I do wonder if we are a little bit too bloated.
Well, let's bring Avon's comment in there, which is that there needs to be outgoings. And I think like the fact that I've literally written down 2 starting 11s and didn't have space for Trossard, I think that they will. I don't think Trossard's big cash injection and no extension has completely ruled him out of a potential sale. But I do think that it would have to be something like a Saudi type bid. There could be, you never know, a left of field little cheeky punt on someone going for Martinelli. If that was to happen on deadline day, someone says to Arsenal, Martinelli, what price are you putting on that?
Okay, so let's look at what we would have if we got rid of Martinelli. You would have Trossard, who's 30, almost 31. You would have Madueke, who we don't know how well he's going to do on that left-hand side yet. And then you've got Eze, who we're not sure is even going to play all of his minutes in that area of the pitch. If we were going to get Martinelli, if we were going to let him go, I would want a new left winger coming in. Basically, I would want a Rodrigo, a Leao, or whatever. I'd want an upgrade, an obvious, like, this is a left wing player who's going to play on the left wing. There's no debates whether he's an attacking midfielder, a centre forward. He is a left winger. We haven't really got that with Eze, although I think he's going to play a lot in that position. So I don't think the club would accept a bid of any, like, unless it was something ridiculous. I don't think the club would accept a bid for Martinelli on deadline day. But to make them think about it, I reckon it'd have to be 60 million plus.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of bringing in the questions part that Phil Macker asked earlier, which was the surprise first team departure. I'm kind of projecting that Martinelli thing, but is there anyone else? If you're saying we need to make sales, is there anyone else that comes to mind as a sale to you?
Well, Trossard was the one that was in my mind. I didn't think we would go for Eze unless we sold Trossard, because now I don't want to say surplus to requirements, because I still think he's a very good player and can still offer something. But you look at our left wing options now, I'm quite happy to have, let's say we've got Madueke and Saka on the right, and then you've got Martinelli and Eze on the left, and then you've got also Madueke that can play on that left-hand side as well. So I don't think you need to keep Trossard. And if a bid came in for him, I would look to accept it. But given that he's just signed that new deal, that's a bit counterintuitive, because no club,
unless he's going to Saudi, right? Unless he's going to Saudi, if they've suddenly bumped it up to 180k or something, it makes him harder to sell, right?
Yeah, exactly that. You'd have thought if they're going to do that, at least wait until the transfer window is closed, because now at least interested parties are going to be like, well, you just, doubled his salary or whatever. We're not going to We wanted him before when he was on 90 grand, but now he's on this. Like it's not going to be sustainable for us. So I don't think he'll go. And don't get me wrong, I've got no issues keeping him, and I like that we've got the options. And given that Havertz is out, it's not the worst idea in the world to keep him around because although I don't really want to see it, he can play at centre forwards. If we again, the only time I want to see Trossard at centre forwards is League Cup games, Champions League games that against opposition that we should be beating, and then if we're seeing out a game where we're 2 or 3-0 up with 20 minutes to go, which would be a luxury scenario. You don't really get that often in the Premier League anymore. But if we're able to bring him on for 20 minutes just to play centre forward at the end of the game, just to really press the opposition, I'm fine with that. But that again, he's the player. Maybe in January you could look to move him on. I think January will be important for us because although we need to get players out now, there isn't like an immediate, okay, they have to go by deadline day, otherwise we're going to be in PSR or FFP trouble. That's not the case. It's something that can be postponed until January next window, and it can go all the way until June the 30th next window in 2026. So let's say we don't get Fabio Vieira out the door, which would be a nightmare scenario, but let's say that doesn't happen. At least you could do that in January. Or early June next year. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that because again, for these guys, like they've got to be they're football players in their mid-20s. They want surely to be playing football, so they need to find solutions in the next week. That's the bottom line. But like I said, I think it's going to be a lot of loans.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's do a quick fire one. Let's tie it to the Martinelli conversation. Selling Martinelli to get Rodrigo. Just yes or no?
Yeah.
See, I'm no. And the reason I'm no is because I think there's a wage thing that will be astronomical. I think the fee would be astronomical. I think we can still get more of a tune out of Martinelli. I genuinely believe that. I think he's more versatile as a centre forward, despite the fact what obviously Des was talking about earlier. And I just feel like we don't know what we don't know in the Premier League, whereas we do know about Martinelli. So I'm a no, but not that.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, and I think you've made my mind up for me. The thing with bringing Rodrigo in for Martinelli is that it's great that we've signed 7 players, but you've also got to consider that there is a hell of a lot of change that is going on within the squad now, and there's no guarantees that all of these players are going to suddenly click. And people love transfers. Like people get really emotionally invested in transfers, and it gets almost as exciting as watching an actual football game. But just because you've signed a player doesn't mean it's immediately going to work. Doesn't mean he's going to click with all the other players that we've signed. So it would be too much change, especially we need attackers. Obviously we do, but it's a further the pitch essentially where you're making enormous changes. We've already bought an entire front three this window. I don't think we need any more players there, especially when you look at the players we've already got. And we've just signed Ranieri up to a new deal. I don't think it makes sense. And Rodrigo, I don't think he even had better numbers than Martinelli last season. And okay, he wants to play on the left-hand side of the pitch, but he's played all his football over the past couple of years on the right for Real Madrid. So, okay, he probably favours the left and believes that's where he's more suited. But if he's not played there in ages, how do we know exactly what we're going to be getting? So, no, I'm in your camp. I think Martinelli, he's fine-tuned to his role in the team, whether people like that or not. He knows what his role is. So I think it would be too much of a gamble.
Yep, 100% agree. We're going to end on with a nice bit of fun. If you are any kind of Arsenal fan, you have spent the last 24 hours being properly gassed about the fantastic news about Eberechi Eze. Despite the fact we've had that disappointment with Kai Havertz, it's been really vibes, elation, joy. But what's also joyful is Schadenfreude, and seeing some of the various memes, some of the AI-generated images, some of the Tottenham fans who were going full on. I mean, they really went hardcore with the Eze's coming to us. He's bantered off Arsenal, blah, blah, blah. Karen Russell asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you loving the Spurs meltdown? Let's just do a minute or two as we wrap up, James, to talk about your favourite kind of meltdown Spurs bits. Has it been the Jamie, whatever his name is, on TalkSport? having a bit of a meltdown? Has it been those two twins who do their own fan show talking about, oh, I can't wait to see the meltdown on the Arsenal fan in the Arsenal fan base when this gets announced? Was it the guy wearing the bucket hat who was like joking and saying, we're going to win the lot, lads, when we get Eze? Like, what has been your favourite? Let's answer Karen's question, which is on the 1 to 10. How much are you loving it? And then give me your favourite sort of Spurs meme or video or what you've seen so far.
I'm definitely giving it a 10. It's hard not to love it. I mean, we've just hit him with a very hard little bro moment. With all due respect to Spurs, sorry, Spurs fans.
No due respect.
No respect. No
due respect.
I think the favourite thing I saw was a Spurs fan that's in a Spurs group chat. I think designated to buying or designing flags to put around the stadium, and it was just a notification saying cancel the Eze flag, which really tickled me. And then there was another one with a guy with big headphones going. I was like, why is it always Tottenham? Why is it always Tottenham? Because this isn't the first time it's happened to them. And then obviously the Jamie O'Hara one, getting kind of excluded from the TalkSport studio because he completely lost his head. It's just, it's if you ever needed any certification that Arsenal are a bigger club than Spurs, this shouldn't be it, but it is. This is the absolute epitome. Arsenal are far and away a bigger club than Tottenham Hotspur. I'm sorry, but it's just the reality. Chris, before obviously I want to get your monologue on that as well, but
yeah.
Let's say the transfer window ended this evening. Based on all the incomings, we need to talk about outgoings at some point, and let's hope in 10 days' time we've got that sorted. But what would you rate this window out of 10?
It's a 9 or a 10, right? Like, it literally is. Because what have we got? So, beginning of the window, we're losing some players. We need to get depth. Tick. We've cried out all of this. We've cried out for a while for a number 9 who is a ruthless finisher. All they care about is just finishing. They just want to be a striker. Tick. We need depth in our attacking trio, quartet, whatever it is. Tick. Let's have a real vibes signing, which is the Eze stuff, right? Let's have something that just makes us just smile. Tick. Like, everything has worked. I'm trying to think, what else can Arsenal have done? Like, we need to.
I can't believe people want more.
Huh?
I can't believe that people want more. Honestly, there are people out there that want more on top of this. 7 signings.
I'm sorry, but do you know what? If you start getting into the more, you turn into Chelsea. And if you turn into Chelsea, you've got people like that joke 2-3 years ago where they were saying there are people who can't even fit in the dressing room. Like, there are literal Chelsea players who have to stand outside of the dressing room because it's too crowded in there. Like, you can't do it. We need to find that balance. We're getting on the crowded side at the moment. We're not Chelsea levels of crowded, like mental levels of crowded, but there will be outgoings. Arsenal know that. But for me, it's got to be a 10 out of 10 window. It doesn't mean it's going to be a 10 out of 10 season. It doesn't mean we're going to win the league. It doesn't mean that we are by far and away the best team that's ever existed. There is no such thing as winning the transfer window. But from where I'm at right now, I have pleasure. I have happiness. I am really pleased that for the first time in God knows how long, the phrase that Arsenal fans know more than anything else, and I'll finish up now, is we're just 1 or 2 short. I can't say that. What about you?
No, but if anything, we're 2 or 3 heavy. We're definitely not 1 or 2 short. I was going to say I understand why people feel like we need more in the wake of the Havertz injury. But like we spoke about earlier, you can't just keep buying players because someone's got injured. Someone else is going to get injured at some point this season. You can't suddenly go out mid-season and buy someone to replace. Just because we're in the midst of the transfer and it's like, oh, he's injured, got to buy someone else to replace him. It doesn't work like that, because if it did, then every time his players come back and you get a fully fit squad, you're going to have about 6 players in each position. So, no, we don't need any more. Even with the Havertz injury, we're very well stocked up top. Okay, we don't have another out-and-out centre forward, but I hope that Gyökeres can use this as an opportunity to really stake his claim in the team. And then how nice would it be if Gyökeres absolutely smashes it during the time that Havertz is out, and then Havertz can't get back in the side. You know, that would be a really good situation. Not for Kai Havertz, obviously, but it'd be a great problem for us to have, because we're getting this brilliant, integral part of our team back. But actually, we don't need to rush you back in because the guy we signed in the summer is tearing it up. So, yeah, I'm optimistic, mate.
Really optimistic. And that optimism hopefully starts on Saturday evening with a 5:30 kickoff against Leeds United. We'll be back on the Sunday. We are wrapping up tonight.
Monday, Chris, remember.
Are we doing Monday, are we? Okay.
Monday
We'll
morning.
be back on Monday. I don't pay attention to our WhatsApps. I read them, but I don't pay attention to them. And that is clearly evident by what we're saying here. But just to wrap up tonight, a very, very positive podcast from James and I. The three of us will be back, including Amanda, on Monday. I know that now. It's good times. It's a good time to be an Arsenal fan. We are set up well. We didn't have the best of performance against Manchester United. We have an opportunity to change that against Leeds. Over 1,100 of you have joined us in the chat. Thank you very much for doing that. We really appreciate all of the support we get from this podcast, and we cannot do it without you. It's the reason why we jump on, because we enjoy the community that we've got. James, take us home. But for the rest of you, thank you very much. And we're going to catch you next time on the same old Arsenal podcast.
See you later, everyone. Bye-bye.